You know, one of the things that I remember the most about Apple launching the first iPad actually has nothing to do with the first iPad, but it's how quickly the Android tablet space just got flooded with competition trying to be the iPad killer. And every company from Samsung, Lenovo, even Google themselves were making a tablet to try and compete with Apple. And it was funny because it was such a rich market that Google even made Honeycomb, an OS that was specifically designed on Android to run on the tablet. Then fast forward a few years, and Google says that they are not officially supporting Android on tablet anymore, and that instead, tablet manufacturers should focus on putting Chrome OS on the tablets, and that Android apps can run in Chrome OS, and they're going to make Chrome OS a little more touch-friendly. Then fast forward a few more years, and Android is back on tablets because Google made their own tablet, and they also made a folding phone that's running Android and needs to have some sort of Android large screen interface. So I had a lot of questions, and I was kind of wondering if it was going to be as good as it used to be. Could it be close to what the iPad's doing? And is it going to be around long enough to matter? I don't have those answers, and time will tell. But what I did do is make a list of things that I think Google should do to actually make Android work on the tablet this time around. I made a list of 5 things, and we're going to go over them now. So starting off at number 5, this is one that I think is really obvious to most companies, but isn't really obvious to Google for some reason, and that is that they need to make a concerted effort to make this work, both now and into the future, and not just drop it at some point. And I say that about Google because, have you seen the Google Graveyard website? There's a lot of stuff on there. In fact, I think, I'll have to check, but I think that Android on tablets was in the Google Graveyard for a while and got killed off. But yeah, if you ever want to check it out, go to the Google Graveyard website, just search Google Graveyard, and you will be scrolling for a long time. It is amazing how quickly they create and kill stuff, and I really hope that Google doesn't do that for Android on the tablet again, because I love my iPad, but I would love to see some more competition in the market because, well, Apple, yeah. For number 4, this is one that I don't think Google's actually going to do, but I would love to see it happen because it would actually make the user experience for people who want Android on the tablet so much better, and that is to set a minimum specification requirement. And not just, oh, if your tablet's more than 5 years old, you're not going to be able to run it. I mean set a minimum spec for RAM, processor, the whole 9 yards. And I say this because one of the things that Apple did really well with the iPad was keep the basic model around and keep it at a very low price point for the people who just want a basic tablet, because that iPad is still really not a good deal, and it's definitely not a basic tablet, but it doesn't do all the same things as the more expensive and fancy ones. But for the core use that the person's buying it for, browsing the web, email, Facebook, whatever, it does that perfectly fine. It doesn't feel like it's slow. It still gets regular updates, both in terms of full OS updates and security, and all of those things. And when it doesn't meet those requirements 4 or 5 years from now, then they just silently drop support and move on to the next one and keep that minimum spec in scale with their OS. Now look at the way that Google handles things with their software on Android, and it is nowhere close to the same experience. In fact, DangPods did a video using an extremely cheap tablet, and that cheap Android tablet that he used in that video actually got stomped by an iPad that was, I believe at this point, almost 7 years old.
Touch screen. What? Laser? We're in 2022. Of course there's a stinking touch screen.
It's really bad, and if you want people to have a good experience with this renaissance of Android on the tablet that you're trying to do, you gotta set some ground rules and say, if it doesn't meet these requirements, we're not going to officially support it. But if it does, then all the new features we roll out that come to the Pixel can also be had on your tablet. Just a thought. Again, I don't think they're going to do that because that's way too much control and effort for Google, but it'd be nice to see. And actually, while we're on the topic of software support, at number 3, we have prolonged software support and updates from Google, because that was one of the biggest reasons why I moved away from Android in the first place. See, because one of the first phones that I ever used was an Android phone, and the updates were locked behind the manufacturer And then once the manufacturer actually got the latest update for Google ready for their phones, it was then locked behind the carrier, and then the carrier took forever to push it through. And then when I got it, it slowed the phone down to a crawl, and it also happened to be the last full OS update the phone would ever get. So I was stuck with a worse OS that I had to wait forever for, and I was not going to get anything that would ever fix it. So looking at other devices like an iPhone and an iPad that happens to get 5 years of software support, and most times, I know the iPhone 4 and 4S exist, but most times gets software support that improves the experience all the way to the end of the device's life, I decided to go that route, and I've been going with fruit-based devices ever since. So if Google actually wants to make the newer version of Android on the tablets work and be accessible to a lot of people for an extended period of time, they need to also make sure that the devices will get these updates, not just security updates, because I know they do get prolonged security updates, but also get full OS updates, again, by setting that minimum spec so that the new updates can take that into account and know that if it meets these requirements, it can have however many updates from there on out without running into any performance hiccups. I really do feel like this point is pretty important because not only does it mean that tablets that run Android will be out on the market longer and have happier people buying them because they know that their device will be supported longer, but again, I had a horrible experience with the updates because I had to wait forever for an update, and then when I got it, it made everything worse, and I was never going to get another one after that. So I just hope that that's one that they do take seriously. And they've done a pretty good job in terms of supporting devices like the Pixel phones, so I hope that that not only trickles down to the Pixel lineup, but also maybe trickles its way down to other tablet makers. But again, then you're locked behind whether the manufacturer wants to push the update through and in a timely fashion, and it gets to be a whole mess, and I see why they don't do it, but I really hope that they do. Moving up to number 2, this is one that comes up every time I talk to my more techie friends about Android on tablets, and that is that they need to make bespoke apps for Android on tablet. See, because anytime I've used an Android tablet, whether it be Samsung or Google themselves, the apps that you get aren't made specifically for the tablet. They are just made as the phone apps blown up. And I know this because one of the ways that Android's UI works is by scaling to multiple screen types. And that same UI scaler is just used to blow an app up to the size of a tablet screen. And yes, before anybody leaves it in the comments, I am aware that Apple has the same issues with their App Store on the iPad. I am fully aware that Instagram exists, and I'm also aware that a lot of developers just kind of lazily blow up their apps to fit the iPad screen. Those apps suck as well. It goes both ways. If you're going to have a larger screen, make an app that takes advantage of it. Because trust me, when you use an app that's actually designed to take full advantage of this bigger screen, it is such a great experience, whether you're using it with the Apple Pencil or you just have a bigger canvas to work with. It is such a great experience. And it really becomes shocking when you switch back to an app that either doesn't fit the screen size because they only made an iPhone version, or they just kind of blew up the phone version. Again, it goes both ways. And I would love to see them make bespoke apps for Android tablets. The only problem with this number 2 on my list is that to get developers to do this, Google has to go back to my number 5, which is again putting in a concerted effort to make sure that this works now and well into the future, because no developer is going to want to put in the time, effort, resources, everything involved to move an app from the phone to the tablet, scale it, make it look pretty, do all the optimization for these larger screens, only to have it thrown away a couple years later when Google decides that tablet interfaces and Android on the tablet just isn't worth their time anymore. And in the meantime, sure, Android's UI scaling will probably help, and it'll make sure that we at least have something on Android tablets that looks reasonable, and we're not going to have an Instagram scenario. But even with that, nothing beats having an app that is properly optimized for the screen and hardware it's running on. Now at number 1, this is a bit more ambiguous, but there needs to be something unique about Android on tablet that helps it stand out from the iPad. And Apple is really going to be a hard company to compete with because they've cornered the tablet market. But Google has gotten off to the right foot by giving you a charging dock speaker thing with their Pixel tablet. That is unique, and that's kind of what I had in mind when it came to things that help stand out from the competition. And, well, I hope to see more of that. And really, that doesn't exclusively fall on Android and the software, but it also comes down to the hardware, which, again, with the Pixel, Google's kind of done that right. But you also have other people to keep in mind, like Samsung, where they make a 15 or 14-inch monstrosity of a tablet, and they also make the Tab A, which we don't talk about. Again, referring back to my number 4. Minimum requirements. Probably not going to do it, but it'd be nice to see better experience for everybody, in my opinion. But yeah, having a variety of options was kind of what made the Android tablet back in its heyday such a big deal. There were so many options and so many unique takes on the tablet while still running Android. There were almost too many, and the market got saturated, and nobody knew what to get, and the iPad just kind of dominated. But having something unique, having something that really helps you stand out from the competition could really help. I mean, right now, Apple seems to be straddling this middle line with their higher-end tablets to be kind of a laptop, but not quite, and kind of a tablet, but almost too much so with certain applications. So maybe if somebody decides to make a tablet running Android that can do all of the laptop things and then easily convert over to just doing all the tablet things and keeping it separate, almost like a Surface, that would be something unique. I've got a ton of little spitball ideas here, but blanket picture, just painting with a broad brush, having something unique to stand out from the competition would be the most important thing for Android on the tablet right now. And considering this is kind of the revival, I feel like this is the perfect opportunity to implement that and the other 4 things that I've mentioned on this list. Either way, those have been my thoughts on what I think Android for the tablet should do to actually become a reasonably competitive OS against the iPad especially, but just in general, something that people might be interested in buying. Let me know what you all think down in the comments, and if you want to see more videos like this, definitely make sure to like so that more of these videos will be seen by more people, including you. And if you don't want to miss any of the videos coming up, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss them, and maybe hit the bell. That apparently will notify you, though mine works sometimes and sometimes doesn't, but if you hit it, maybe it'll work for you. Either way, that's been it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Make sure to be there, and have a good one.